big stories, and even bigger guests.
This is The Roy Green Show on the Chorus Radio Network.
All right, now yesterday we spoke with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, about his appearance tomorrow before the Canadian Parliamentary Heritage Committee on M103. Have a listen. I understand now that there is a Canadian connection that's coming to your life. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was called by your Heritage Committee to testify on the M103. And M103, as you know, you've talked about many times in your program, is in a study period right now, so they're gathering testimony, and many of our friends, Rahil Raza, Tariq Fatah, have testified, and I think they're reaching out to folks like myself who've been very outspoken about the need for free speech. And I look forward to testifying on Monday about that, to basically let them know that even the term Islamophobia I find offensive, that the government should never get in the business of filtering free speech or having citizens be afraid to speak out. Islam does not need special protections, and if they do want to work against racism, which is what this committee has been tasked with determining, then they should identify specific issues regarding bigotry against Muslims, against folks from other ethnicities, etc., but don't call it Islamophobia. And a lot of times what is prevented in free speech ends up severely restricting security issues. And I think the ban on niqab is a good example on how Quebec and other places can start to have smarter policies.
Well, let me ask you about the niqab in just a moment, and then we'll talk about Senator Flake. But so you're going to tell the Heritage Committee that you're not in favor of M103, clearly.
Yes.
Right?
And absolutely.
Have you had any sense of what they might expect from you?
That's a good question. I think hats off to them for getting input from Americans, because our free speech laws are a bit more liberal and more open than yours in some ways. But I think they've seen my work and how outspoken we've been on the need for Muslim reform. And I think they're expecting to hear what is the impact on Muslims. And it's easy to say that the Canadian government wants to put on paper a protection against hate speech and what they call Islamophobia, but what will the impact be on Muslims? And my testimony that I think they have some sense that I'll be giving them is that it'll have the greatest impact on us reformers, because we are the first ones to be listed as Islamophobes by, individuals like the person that authored this M103, who really was articulating what is said in the Pakistani government about those who speak out against the government are called Islamophobes, and those of us who speak out against Islamism are identified as Islamophobes, even though we love our faith. So I hope Canada realizes that M103 is a guise for restricting your greatest allies within the Muslim community who are reformers.
Well, I know you're going to give them a lot to think about. And I think this government needs a lot to think about as far as this particular motion is concerned, because of the implications it brings along with it and the controversy that's come along with it as well. It needs to be really aired out, sorted out, and it needs to reflect what really is in the best interest of this country and the people of this country, obviously.
Amen.
Zuhdi, what about
they realize that the strongest protector for democracy is free speech.
Yeah.
And the moment you start identifying faiths like Islam as having rights to be protected when it's not a person, Islam is not a person, it's an idea. It doesn't deserve any protection. Muslims, people of faith do, but that's not what M103 is about. It's about Islamophobia, which I don't believe exists.
There was, and I mentioned this last weekend, a few years ago, there was a Human Rights Tribunal hearing in Canada, and the investigator was brought forward to testify, and in his testimony he was asked about freedom of speech. And he said, in Canada there is no such thing as freedom of speech. That's an American idea. That's an American thing. Well, it's not called freedom of speech in Canada. It's freedom of expression, but he had no idea. This is an investigator for the Human Rights Tribunal. He had no idea that we had freedom of expression in our Constitution.
This is such an important moment for Canadians. I can simply, as an American, help maintain our greatest ally north of us, and I think in the West, our greatest ally is Canada. And, I hope you can shift the movements that are happening in society to restrict one of the cornerstones of protections of democracy, which is the ability for people to push the envelope, because the people in the center aren't the ones that test democracy. The people that test democracy are those on the fringes.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser speaking with us yesterday on the